I've been like kind of focusing more on strategy in the last few days and like really going through the last practice exam and like figuring out why I was getting the questions wrong. And so I've been like developing a list of like things that I've found that I've been doing. Um, Specifically with cars, I think like I said in my email and my text, like my mind maps kind of helped,
Uh-huh.
but they're like really long
Hmm.
and um I don't know, like I don't really know how much like I found that I would not really refer to them as much as I probably should. Um, but I was trying to like make mind maps actually for biology, and that helped a lot with understanding the passage. So I think I'm gonna keep trying to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
okay. Yep. We're into it.
I was just gonna say, like, I also started to notice, and I was like thinking about when I've taken cars passages, that when I am looking for things in each paragraph to make a mind map or like to really hone in on specific details and highlight things, I actually end up doing worse because I'm forgetting like what the passage is about or like what the paragraph is about. And so I was trying to um I guess try a new strategy on some of the other like AMC materials where I'm mostly just reading and like reading it to myself as if I'm like presenting it to myself. And that has seemed to help um, with like tone and picking up on things. Um, so I think maybe like my strategy should be more so like less highlighting because that kind of chops up my reading comprehension and only like I guess referring to the passage and highlighting key terms like I don't know, like they were talking about the Constitution in the last one I read, so like highlighting whenever they were talking about like the French Constitution versus the US. Um,
Got it.
yeah, so
So,
I think that
yep.
might help.
Yeah, so are you saying that sometimes when you look for details in the passage that you lose sight of like the bigger picture? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Or
like it's more so when I'm reading the first time and I'm like trying to understand what the passage is about. If I'm focusing on the details, then I get messed up a little bit. But then if I think I have better ability to find the details that they're referring to in the questions afterwards, like if key players are highlighted, I guess. Um, I think I have like kind of a hard time between reading too much into things versus like not reading enough. So like some questions I'll get right or some questions I'll get wrong because I didn't refer to like the specific example or like definition of a term and I kind of just assumed one thing over another and then I would get like so caught up in like I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Like just kind of back and forth between going too specific and forgetting about like what the word behavior means or like the word physiological means
got it.
versus like not being specific enough and not referring to the examples that they give for explicit definitions.
Got it.
Yeah.
So let's choose, yeah, let's choose one of these passages for us to like for me to like check your map and see like what I would have done differently. Um, so any of these you want to focus on?
We could probably do, hold on.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess we could just do like the first one because I have it here because it's like written, maybe. And this was actually one of the examples, like an example of how I mixed up like the words because I was like the actual term because I was looking too closely at the definition that they're giving. Um, yeah.
Are you talking about, so when you say the first one, which is that? Is that the supermarket one?
No, it's the one on warfare,
Uh,
like the ultimate proximate causes and then the consequences.
okay. Oh, I see. Got passive one. Got it. All right. Yeah. Let's do that one. So yeah, you could pull it up, and then we can, or I can read it and kind of like tell you like what I would put, and then we can compare it to what you wrote.
Okay. Um, I can pull it up and then maybe like if you can read it and then kind of critique each of my paragraph
Mhm.
main ideas.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, 1 second.
Mhm.
Mm,
Okay. So yeah, so I'll read it and I'll think out loud, and like I guess I'll write stuff for the map too. So let's see. Okay. Despite the grimly predictable tragedies of armed conflict, almost all ancient and modern societies that are studied by anthropologists have engaged in at least periodic bouts of warfare. Okay, so new idea. Even though armed conflict has very predictable negative things associated with it, anthropologists have noticed that pretty much every society, both ancient and modern, has engaged in at least some warfare, right?
mm,
And then they say the ubiquity of organized fighting between human groups has fired up the scientific study of warfare. What do you think ubiquity means?
Um, I guess like universal almost, like that it's happening in all societies in general.
Yeah, exactly. Good. And all right, so let's see. So I'll make the map, and then we can compare to the one that you wrote,
Okay.
just because I don't want the one that you wrote to like kind of interfere with what I'm.
Yeah.
P1, despite tragedies from war, every society, modern and ancient, engaged in war. And this leads to like the scientific study of war. So, despite the negative aspects of war, every society pretty much, including, ancient and modern, have engaged in war. And this has led to the fact that it's so universal has led to people, I guess, wanting to investigate war in a scientific way. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so I guess it's like kind of similar to my first paragraph. I just wrote that like warfare is grim but predictable and you can study it.
Um,
So,
yeah, let me see. Okay. Warfare grim and predictable can study. Um yeah, I guess the thing about grim and predictable uh is not is less so the reason that we can study it, but more so the fact that it's universal.
Okay. So I guess like the main takeaway for that would just to make sure I include the fact that like all societies engage in warfare.
Yep. Because we're trying to so what you wrote is true in that yes, warfare can be grim and predictable. And it's something that we can study, right? But I think oh yeah, I didn't even highlight anything. So, but I think what I would really take away from this is just the fact that it's universal. The fact that it's universal is what prompted the particularly scientific study of warfare. So I would also so like in what you wrote, I would say, or is it okay if we like do well, I was gonna say like I'll do the map and then we can I guess we could do it at the same time. So okay. So yeah, warfare, grim and predictable, something you can study. I would just adjust that to say um universal, like warfare being universal, means that we can study it scientifically, in particular, scientifically.
Okay.
So, okay. Because other way, like you can, like, otherwise you can study war like historically, right? Or
Hmm.
logically or something. Okay. Current notions about the roots of war stem mainly from studies of non-industrial societies that lack centralized political power, as well as, lacking, extensive military organizations. Um, so like all of the current ideas or current, yeah, like one of the current, like the current kind of view of war like is obtained from studies of non-industrial societies that don't have a centralized political like authority, and they're also lacking extensive military organization. So that's what the current kind of research is using. um all of these theoretical approaches focus on three themes. So, they're giving us a numerical list, so we want to pay attention to each element of this list. So we have the ultimate causes of the war that influence the goals that people fight for. Um, the goals, okay, that people fight for. Um, such as competition within a society that has scarce resources. Um, and I guess another example is that there could be intense division between groups of related individuals. So, uh, so yeah, if it has to do with the goal, like if the fighting has a goal, I guess that could be considered an ultimate cause. Let's see. Proximate causes such as society's military preparedness and the goals of its leaders, and that this is often the desire for land, natural resources, control of trade routes. So these are not the goals that people fight for, but the goals of the leaders, um, as well as how militant a society's, I guess, like, yeah, military is, right? Uh,
Hmm.
so like so in like social studies when they taught you about like World War I, they were like, what do they say? Like, how do they teach that?
They kind of try to explain what the main cause was rather than a bunch of things.
Oh, so I mean, like, well, things could have changed since I was in whatever middle school, high school, but I remember when they were teaching us about World War One, they had several there's like militarism, like imperialism, right? All nationalism, all of those things that could have caused, World War One. So that's just what I'm thinking of here, like the proximate causes. If a country is very militarily focused, that could influence their likelihood of engaging in war, especially if they're trying to gain something for their nation. Um,
Hmm.
okay, then we have consequences of war that influence further conflict. Okay. Examples are population decline, improved access to resources, increased prestige and power that's given to victorious warriors. Okay, so that I guess mean that uh, war can have consequences that can lead to further conflict. All right.
I guess for like this one, I
Mhm.
was kind of originally confused when it was giving an example of something that could influence further conflict being improved access to resources. But I guess like that could mean like improved access to like military resources. Because like I don't know how it would be how it could cause more conflict just by having more resources,
That's
you
a good
know.
question. So what I think that means is like so considering so first of all, these are three causes or three themes.
Um, I mean, they're like consequences, I
So
guess.
so like I think what you were doing, which I actually realized I was doing too, was thinking of these as three causes. But when I take a closer look at it, I could see that causes are for the first two, but consequences is not a type of cause, right?
So they're focusing on a theme of like studying, and so you can study the consequences of war, which could be improved access to resources, which can influence further conflict. So I guess when they say influence further conflict, it doesn't necessarily have to mean cause more conflict.
So it can, but we can see this like this, right? So, like before, let's say a war starts, it would need to have a cause for it, whatever that cause is. Let's say so an ultimate cause here is being used. An ultimate cause can be competition for scarce resources. And then let's say that since that's a cause of war, that leads to a war, and the people who like fight in the war may have, sit in their victory, have increased their access to those same resources.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you don't have the resources, so you fight a war so that you can get the resources, and that you getting improved access to resources is a consequence of a war. And if you're getting increased resources, some other people that you're fighting against are losing resources. So that can cause further conflict. One war can cause another war.
Okay. So I guess I was like kind of looking at further conflict, meaning like further conflict to the victor rather than to the person losing or like the country that's losing. So that's where I was confused.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's when we see the three themes, it's easy to conflate that with causes, but a cause will happen before something happens, right? And a consequence will happen after something happens. So
Mm-hmm.
an ultimate cause or a proximate cause can lead to a war, and that war, a consequence of that war could be another conflict.
And but that conflict is like with the people who lost. Like it's not necessarily conflict within the people who won.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like where I was confused.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm thinking of like an example that I'm thinking of is like I mean, this was a long time ago, but like the Iraq War, was a war that we fought against Iraq, and we were really quick to be able to defeat Iraq, um, which gave us more access to resources and whatnot. But then there's a bunch of sectarian conflict, like Sunnis versus Shiites, that got even worse after Saddam Hussein fell. So that's an example of consequences of the war that took down Saddam Hussein, leading to further conflict, due to, you know, could be due to a lot of different reasons, but yeah. So I think
Okay.
what they're trying to say. So,
Okay.
okay, so let's see. I would put P2. Let's see. Okay, three themes. So one, ultimate cause, um, goals to fight for, i.e., competition, scarce resources, uh, divisions within groups, and two, proximate. So this could be society's military, I'll write like militantism and, goals of leaders, i.e., desire for land, resources, etc. And three, consequences, influence, or cause further conflict, i.e., pop decline, access resources, prestige, etc. So, yep. Ultimate cause, goals that people fight for. Examples are competition for scarce resources, divisions within groups, etc. Proximate causes, society's militantism and the goals of the leader rather than the goals of the people who are fighting. Desire for land and resources, and then three consequences, uh, which mean that the consequences of a war can cause further conflicts, and some examples of that. So, okay. Yeah, I guess whatever. I guess we can compare it to what you wrote. So let's see. Three themes studied of non-industrial societies. Oh, that's a good point, actually. I didn't put that. Non-industrial, lacking um centralized government slash extensive militaries. So, okay. Ultimate causes influence goals to fight, like scarce resources. Proximate causes um are preparedness goals themselves, desire for land. So I would just say for the proximal or proximate that it's because you wrote the goals. Well, the goals
Yeah,
to
I'd probably put like the leaders' goals if
yeah.
I had to fix that.
Oh, sorry. Say that again.
Like if I had to fix that, I would include that it's the leader's goals.
Yep. Yep. And I guess for the preparedness, like military preparedness, like um
Yeah.
then let's see, consequences influence more conflict. Okay, good. So yep, that's pretty good. Okay. Although some anthropologists and sociobiologists contend that a genetic tendency toward physical violence greases the human war machine. What are we saying here?
Um, that some anthropologists and sociobiologists believe that there's a genetic tendency towards physical violence
Okay.
in war, I guess.
Okay, so let's see. So some anthropologists and sociobiologists say there's a genetic tendency towards physical violence, and that can lead to war. And then they say, so I guess, because they're starting off with a contrast word here. Um, and I guess I usually say a contrast word is going to be in contrast to the thing that's immediately before it.
Hmm.
But sometimes it could be in contrast to the thing immediately after it. So this one is the although is going to be for what's after.
Okay.
It says, although some anthropologists and sociobiologists say that there's a genetic tendency towards physical violence that can lead to war, uh, these theories attract few advocates today. So, although a lot of people used to think this, now not many people think this, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Nevertheless, disputes over the alleged biological roots of combat continue to erupt. Um, Disputes over the biological. Okay, so there's still like disagreement over the biological roots of, let's say, war, right? So let's see. Fewer or genetic leading to violence, leading to war theory, less popular today, but still discussed. So, and then let's see, he wrote controversy over genetic tendency for violence, few advocates, and then still study biological roots. So I think that the connection here that you want to have made was that this genetic tendency for violence could lead to war,
Okay.
right? Because our passage is talking like every paragraph so far talks about war, and I wanted to make a distinction between like genetics that can result in violence, which could then impact war, but I'm still making that connection. Um,
Yeah. I think like when I wrote violence, I was kind of assuming that like physical violence was war. So I like made that like assumption in my head, but maybe I should have written it out.
mhm. Yeah, but all in all, still pretty good. Um, Controversy, meaning there's disagreement about this theory, and you know, even though fewer people believe it now, it's still something that's discussed. Okay. Perhaps the most wide-ranging warfare study to date was conducted during the 1980s by Ember. I guess both like I guess it's like husband and or wife or whatever. These Embers. Okay. The team. So okay, now we're like, introducing like an actual like evidence study. So I would do like orange highlights and stuff. All right, the team analyzed anthropological descriptions of 186 non-industrial societies. So we're looking at non-industrial still. Virtually all of which operated on a much smaller scale than modern nation states. Descriptions ranged from 18th century writings on Native American tribes to recent accounts of African hunter-gatherers. Okay, let's see. This, we have this Embers study that looked at non-industrial societies, smaller scale, and examples can, be from 18th century writings on Native Americans and, recent ones on African hunter-gatherers. And then we have two independent coders read the voluminous literature and rated the presence of frequency of warfare, aggressive acts, natural disasters, and other social and psychological factors, focusing on a 25-year period in each society. Okay, so it seems like they're kind of setting up the experiment here. So let's see, 1980s Ember investigated non-industrial small countries, i.e. Native Americans, Africans, and um, two independent coders. Like, I guess that means people who are doing the investigation. So, but okay, they evaluated like frequency, oops, of war, aggressive acts, natural disasters, social, psychological, you know, factors and stuff. So 1980s Embers invest um oh, I mean for invest I mean investigate
Mm.
non-industrial slash small, countries. For example, Native Americans, Africans, and they looked for like things like frequency of war, aggressive acts, natural disaster, psych or sociological factors. I feel like they might ask something about how natural disasters could lead to war or something. But yeah, who knows? See, okay. Oh, yeah, and then let's read what you wrote. So the Embers, 1980, NA old, recent A, rate, presence of war, aggression. Yep, that's pretty much perfect. All right, the Embers say that their findings offer a tentative theory of war. So okay, this kind of it's a theory of war that I guess is not fully substantiated yet, so that's why they're saying tentative. Um, the societies that engage in the most warfare express more, okay, so most warfare, more fear of food shortages caused by expected but unpredictable natural disaster. All right, yeah, I had a feeling they're going to say something about natural disasters. So, um, and I had that feeling because all the other stuff here, like, is different from natural disasters, right?
Mm.
So cool. And then we have, I guess, examples like drought, flood, infestation. So cool. And let's see, the fear of others indicated by child rearing practices, stressing mistrust of neighbors, can also cause, there to be caught like fighting. So, okay, interesting. So you could say P5, Embers, new theory, war, um, countries with war have more fear of food shortages slash, natural disasters and fear of others to mistrust neighbors all lead to fighting. Ember's new theory of war. Countries with war have more fear of food shortages and natural disasters, and fear of others slash mistrust neighbors, and all of this can lead them to fight. What do they mean when they say expected but unpredictable?
I'm guessing that means that they understand that it's bound to happen, but they're not sure when they're gonna happen.
Perfect. Good, good, good. So, Ember theory of war, increase war of uh of
Natural disasters.
got it. Oh, N period DI.
Yeah.
All right. And then that's increase in war, and then fear, mistrust others, in child rearing, expected. Yeah, pretty much perfect. Or that's pretty much perfect. Okay. Some researchers have suggested a penchant for warfare among societies with high levels of interpersonal aggression, um, as reflected in elevated rates of murder and theft. So, okay, the Ember. So this is some other like whatever theory. The Ember study showed no such links. So the Ember study did not show that. Um, Parents in warlike societies do tend to encourage toughness and aggression among boys. Let's see. Warlike societies. Okay. But warfare apparently, warfare causes this rather than warfare being a product of this toughness or interpersonal aggression. Okay. Oh, so this is according to Embers. Okay, when these societies lose wars and come under the control of outside forces, the harsh child rearing methods diminish sharply. Okay, that could be their evidence for what the Embers are trying to say, that it's that the war fear causes the toughness and aggression rather than the other way around. And you can see this because if you have a society that loses a war, um, the interpersonal aggression and toughness and aggression that the parents initially encouraged kind of goes away.
Mhm.
Lose wars and harsh child rearing methods diminish. Okay, so here I'll write P6. Let's see. Okay, some say high interpersonal aggression, like murder slash theft, can lead to warfare. Embers disagree, say that warfare causes the interpersonal aggression, i.e., like if society loses war, harsh child rearing disappears pretty much. Some say some say high interpersonal aggression, like in murder and theft, can lead to warfare. The Embers disagree, and they say that the warfare could be causing the interpersonal aggression, and that you can kind of see this if you observe societies that lose wars and subsequently stop rearing their children in harsh ways that gets them to that would encourage toughness and aggression. So um they didn't really give us an example of one of these societies that that have the harsh child rearing methods diminish. So I'm taking note of the fact that like this paragraph isn't giving me like any hard evidence, aka nothing that I'm gonna highlight in orange. If they told me like, all right, this country did, as an example, then that's different. Okay. And then let's see, you wrote opposition to I guess
Arterial.
theory of
Yeah,
Ember, interpersonal aggression can cause war. Ember says no. Parents during war leads to the war causing aggression. Yeah.
I guess what I was saying there is like the
Mhm.
way parents act during war is from the fact that war causes aggression. I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yep. Because you have aggression causes war. Embers say no, and that parents during war can lead to war causes of aggression. So yeah, as long as you like know that the parents during war is like equivalent to the interpersonal aggression, then that would make sense. Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
war causes aggression. Okay, I get it. Yep, that's true. That's good. Okay. War is not the natural uh human condition, according to this anthropologist. Research shows that war varies over time due to factors such as trade, population growth, and outside contacts. Often leaders must paint the enemy as inhuman in order to motivate people to kill. So I guess that's saying that it's not really a normal, like natural human thing to like want to kill. So, he's kind of bolstering that argument by saying that leaders have to paint their enemy as inhuman in order to motivate people to kill. And even then, many soldiers come out of combat with severe psychological after effects. We need to dispense with the idea that people love violence and are doomed to fight. Okay. It put war not a natural human thing. It varies due to trade, population growth, outsiders, etc., according to Ferguson. Leaders have to essentially brainwash people to kill, and even then, there's negative psychological effects, and ultimately, people don't really love, violence or fighting. All right. And then you wrote Berg. People do not love violence, not natural, war factors. Okay. And then main idea, studying themes of warfare and explaining why people go to war, not biological violence leading to it being inherent. Okay, let's see. So talked about everything. All right, everyone, there's always war, and then there's a scientific study of war, and a view of war based on genetics, a view of war, um, that's the Embers, um, research that talk about how it's related to like the natural disasters and stuff. Um, okay, and then the interpersonal part and war is not natural. So, okay, let's see. Um, okay. Yeah, I guess pretty much what you wrote. You wrote lots of different reasons slash theories for war, but it's not intrinsic to human nature. And you wrote setting themes of warfare and explaining why people go to war, not biological violence is not equal to inherent.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, I guess that's what I get from it. I mean, yeah, we have the various different like reasons or causes for war, and then we talk about some other view of genetic tendencies, and then we talk about the Ember study, who, are trying to say that it's related to the, natural disasters and stuff. And then some people say it's this interpersonal aggression thing, but they disagree with that. Natural disaster could be, we should probably,
Yeah, I wasn't sure like if that should go in the main idea.
mm-hmm.
Um, I guess if I was doing it over again, I would probably write that it's not biological and then put like Ember says it's due to natural disaster or like fear of natural disasters.
Yeah, I'm trying to see which of these like ultimate, proximate, which of these would be related to a natural disaster, but I guess it could be
I would say like probably the ultimate cause, maybe.
competition.
Um, yeah, or yeah, I don't really, or it could be proximate, but
Okay. Okay, so but yeah, I think what we have is good. You can take your screenshot and it seems to be pretty much what you wrote. So yeah, let's see.
I think like what happened with the questions
Mhm.
was when I was using the mind map, the overall idea I understood, but then they would ask questions more specifically about like examples that I wrote down. Like I put a little star next to paragraph 2 talking about the scarce resources because even in the untimed, I like missed that question because I didn't include like a detail that the ultimate causes are also due to like intense divisions between groups, and that's what made me get the question wrong.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe like with mind maps, it's helpful for the main idea, but then if the question is explicitly asking about like a certain definition, I should go back and find it in the paragraph and like look at the actual like examples that they give. Because I've noticed that I look at the definition of something, but then I don't look at the examples. But then the questions are actually asking about the examples and not necessarily the definition.
Okay. Um, so let's see. Uh, is this like a question that
This question I got correct. Um, the one that I'm like specifically talking about is this one.
hey? Oh yeah, yeah, this is what I was trying to think of with the natural disasters. I was trying to think of what cause to put like
This one I like what I think I spent a lot of time on it. Like I flagged it and then so between this one and then um this one. This is like giving an example of something and then asking me to compare it to a direct.
Mhm.
I thought they were asking me to compare it to a direct cons or a direct definition, but actually they were asking me to look at the examples of the definition.
Okay,
And so I got it wrong.
got it. So yeah, let's go back to three. Okay, so yeah, so this was something I was trying to figure out when we were reading it. About I was trying like when I said like I'm trying to see what natural disasters falls under in the three themes. So
Mhm.
um so natural disasters. Well, oh, I just noticed. Well, it also says wait, natural disasters. It says that, but it also says the food shortages and also
Yeah, so like the where is it saying? Um, yeah, fear of food shortages that are caused by the natural disasters. So I guess like that makes it easier to answer because they're saying that they're fearing
Mhm.
having scarce resources.
Yeah, yeah.
So I ultimately chose the right answer for this, but I flagged it because I was in between saying just ultimate and saying ultimate and proximate.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's because when I was looking at proximate, if I'm like going to my mind map, like I'm talking about like I don't know, the desire for land and then natural resources. So I think I was like assuming that when it said fear of food shortages, that would be an example of um, a goal to acquire more natural resources.
Got it. So I totally can see that. I see ultimate competition, scarce resources, proximate could be um, desire for natural resources. Now, there's a key difference between ultimate and proximate here in how they're described. What do you think that could be?
Well, looking at it again, it seems like ultimate is more of like the basic like human needs, like the goals that the people are fighting for, and then the proximate causes are more so surrounding a society and its leaders and like what their needs are.
Yep. So yeah, ultimate is the individuals, right? So the goals that the people fight for, those are the individuals. Competition within a society for the scarce resources. Um, and then whatever, divisions between groups of related individuals. So we're talking about individuals there. Proximate, we're talking about society as a whole, so society's military preparedness and the goals of the leaders of the society. That could include a desire for more natural resources. But since the Embers theory is about, um, let's see, the societies that engage in the most warfare express considerably more fear of food shortages um, that can be caused by these natural disasters. Yeah, I guess we're talking about like within the society that there's the that individuals are experiencing, you know, food shortages or fear of food shortages from the natural disasters. So I think that's what would make one true and not two. Because I think two, they're talking that's more so the society as a whole, and meaning also its leaders.
Yeah, I get that now, but I definitely missed the differentiation when I was reading it the first time.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that had to do again with like trying to dissect the definition too much rather than like reading the whole sentence of the ultimate causes and then reading the proximate causes and like being able to tell what the difference was based off of like the main idea.
Yeah, let me take another look at because I see. So in the map that I wrote for the ultimate goals to fight, and then for proximate societies, militantism, and goals of leaders, right?
Yeah, and I just like completely ignored that, I guess. Like in my ultimate causes, I didn't even write that
Mm-hmm.
they're the individuals'
Mm-hmm.
goal, like the people. And then I also didn't write that it's the society or the government leaders
Yeah.
for proximate. So
Goal, yeah. So I think that's I mean, like aside from that, and aside from the first paragraph being due to the ubiquity, your map is pretty good. Like it's pretty perfect. So yeah, I think that like of course like especially for reading it for the first time because I for instance I didn't catch at first how these are causes and a consequence is not a cause. Um
yeah, I missed that too. I missed it in that like I was trying to dissect it so much that I like forgot what the word consequence like even means.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
Um,
I can see what you mean about like, you read it, you get your big picture main idea, and then for the questions that require you to like specific like to go to a specific part of the passage, you zoom in and then it can help it can negatively affect your big picture view. So yeah, so I guess the ultimate cause are talking about yes, individuals, and then proximate is for society. So that's going to be the key thing here. So yeah.
and I think for this question, um, this is kind of similar where I first of all, I forgot or like it just slipped my mind what the word consequences actually means. Um, and then also this example is specifically talking about high degree of conflict between internal like groups, um, which is literally stated like in the ultimate causes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I completely like I didn't write that in my mind map and I basically just skipped over the examples.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, even though I kind of included it in the map here with within groups, when I was reading this, I was a little kind of uh I felt a little weird about that because we it seems like we're talking about war, and when I think of war, I don't really think of civil war. So, the divisions, so it says like for instance, competition within a society for scarce resources, and then divisions between groups of related individuals. It's hard for me to reconcile that because in my head I'm thinking this other country has resources and your country doesn't, so you can fight a war with that country against that country that has the resources to get the resources. So even though I read that it said within a society and between related individuals, it was kind of weird. Like I was kind of like,
Yeah, like that's kind of what I did too. I guess I glazed over the fact that it's saying within. Um, and I think the reason why I chose consequences of war was because it was talking about the consequences that influence further conflict.
uh-huh,
So
yeah.
yeah, like the fact that it wrote conflict in the question stem, but also that like this conflict leads to more conflict.
Hmm.
So that I think that was my thought process.
Let's see. So, assume that societies with a high degree of conflict between internal factions tend to wage war more frequently than do most more cohesive societies. Correlates with which. Okay, I can see. So, I think when they say, like, we don't know, conflict can exist without. I mean, it's kind of weird because they say conflict here.
I think like what I was missing in the question now that I'm reading it again is the fact that they're comparing like two societies, one that is cohesive and then one that's not cohesive
Hmm.
internally. So like the consequences of warfare doesn't really talk about internal issues,
Hmm.
but the ultimate does. I think I was focusing just on the fact that like there's conflict and it's leading to more conflict, but that's like not what the question was actually asking.
Yeah. So yeah, I think and also something that I was looking at was just how it said um the conflict between internal factions. I don't know
Mhm.
if that means, like, again, this makes it confusing, but maybe this then does not mean, well, because I'm thinking either that conflict does not have to mean war. You could have conflict, between groups within a society that could possibly lead to war. And this is saying societies with a high degree of conflict between internal factions tend to wage war more frequently. So I think that what they mean here is a non-physical conflict, kind of like what they say here, intense divisions between groups of related individuals. They're talking about
Yeah.
conflict, which could be division between
Oh,
internal
yeah.
factions, which can
And
be.
I think also like it's saying like it's specifying that these societies tend to wage war more,
Mhm.
which is like a cause, like this causes more war rather than like a consequence of a war that already happened, I guess.
Yeah. So very tricky because of the word conflict. We might think of it as what we kind of see here, which would imply physical, like war type of conflict, but they're not saying it's a physical type of conflict. They're just saying it's a conflict within between internal factions, and that's closest to intense division between groups of related individuals within the society.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. This question, like,
mhm.
I don't even what happened. Like, I think also being under time pressure, like there was a lot to consider in the question. So,
Mhm. Yeah. So I think everything you did is perfect. I think the key thing here is that for these three themes to really kind of understand the nuances between them. So, like, how I guess I would summarize them would be that ultimate causes are caused by are on the individual level and can involve conflict between like within the society. And then proximate is on the level of the society itself rather than individuals within the society. And that can lead to, all these types of things. And then the consequences of war that can cause further conflict. I guess if they're saying population decline, improved access to resources, increased prestige and stuff, that could be, I guess, something that could result in further conflict. So, but yeah, I think it's the I think what will help us the most in figuring out the answer is just them saying internal factions, like there being conflict within the internal factions. But yeah, the word conflict makes it confusing because it's like, is it armed? Like, is conflict war or is it including things that are not, strictly speaking? But yeah, that's pretty tough. But yeah, I think you did a great job on the map and just, the things that we talked about for paragraph two. But yeah, for the most part, I think you got it.
okay. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it would like be more beneficial to continue with cars or like maybe go through something with like Chem Phys.
Mhm.
Um,
Are there any?
yeah. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, like any like any like questions you can pull up or any concepts that you feel about.
Yes, actually. Um, I was looking through like some stuff and I think I need to go through. So I know we went through fluid dynamics, but I think I need it again, like specifically with barometers.
Okay.
And then also something that tripped me up was like osmotic versus oncotic pressure and those two versus hydrostatic pressure. Because like I thought there was a big difference between osmotic and oncotic, but like the way they were using it, it it wasn't different. So I don't know, I was like confused. I'll see if I can like pull the question up. Um, because there were two questions like back to back about that, which I think made it worse, honestly. Mm, Sorry, my laptop always like spazzes out when I'm on Zoom, so it takes a little while.
Yeah, it might be like a RAM thing. I know a lot of people with MacBooks, like for some reason they give really like they only give like 8 gigs of RAM, which is like you're likely using more of that in like the stuff that's open.
Yeah, I've noticed like right now I can already hear my laptop like go the fans turning on and it's like really annoying. Um, it gets really loud and overheats.
Yeah, let's see. If you go to like about this Mac, I'm curious about how much. Yeah. Yeah, see, they only gave 8 gigs of RAM, which for some reason Macs do like that's such a like I didn't have that little RAM for like 20 years or something. Like because
That, yeah, is that like something I would have to buy like in addition? Or like is it something I have to buy with the laptop before?
so if it's an Apple product, since they don't really want you to customize or do anything yourself, then yeah, you probably have to pay like I think double the price to get double the RAM, but any other type of computer, you can just buy it and it's really inexpensive and like I could even show you some. So like here is a this is like 16 gigs.
Hmm.
So and I could just so like when I get well, the computer I'm using now is like my like desktop that I built, but usually if I get a laptop, I would get like a ThinkPad like this. That's obviously
Yeah.
blurred, but for really cheap with really low RAM and small hard drive, and I just buy RAM, which is also really cheap, and I just put it in. So, but
Hmm.
yeah, 8 gigs is so you're on that about the Mac thing. I think it also shows you how much is being used.
Probably all of it.
Yeah, yeah, I would guess so. So, um, oh wait, let's see. You would go to activity monitor.
Oh, yeah, I've looked at that before. There's all these things that are like working in the background that like cookies and stuff that I don't need and I don't know how to get rid of them.
If you can go to that activity monitor, I want to see
Yeah.
is like so RAM is essentially
How do I get there? System settings.
I think it's in let's see the utilities folder of the applications folder in the applications folder or whatever. Utilities should be you go down. Like yeah, it'll be all the way down. Yeah, there it is. Oh, go down. You
Oh, and
underneath
system.
there. There. Yep, go. And then activity monitor left, top left. So now go to memory over here. And yep. So you're
Yeah, like, I don't even know what like some of these things are.
so 6.8. So I guess you're not using that like not all of like, but you're pretty close to all of it, right? 6.81 is what you're using, and you have 8 total.
Hmm.
But yeah. So yeah. So yeah, Chrome is a gig of that. So but Yeah, I guess yeah, you're not going like, but I guess like some other times it's very easy for you to go beyond that. Like if you have zero point 0.2 gigs of RAM used, like that could be like just a couple of more you know, Chrome windows and stuff. But yep, memory.
Yeah, I have to like clear, I guess, like my
Mm.
cookie history.
Yeah. So RAM is gonna be like whatever things you have open. But there's like the cache that you could clear as well. But
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know why Macs do that with the low RAM.
Probably to get you to like buy another one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because yeah, they don't want you to do things yourself, so that's why there's so many barriers to customization for Apple stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm using 20 gigs right now.
Really?
Hmm.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Okay. I just have to click through.
Are you looking for like the osmotic pressure thing?
Yes, I'm looking for it and I can't find it.
Oh, I thought
I
I,
just,
I
oh, 54. I was thinking 58.
saw a drawing that
Yeah,
just made there.
this one.
Got it. Yeah. So, um, okay. So what can you tell me about um whatever osmotic pressure versus hydrostatic?
Um, Osmotic pressure has to do with like the diffusion of water from higher concentration to, or like across its gradient, so like from a higher concentration to a lower concentration
Concentration of what?
of water.
Mhm.
And then hydrostatic, I'm a little more confused on, but because yeah, I'm just like confused in general from hydrostatic and like how it would be different than like oncotic and how osmotic is different from oncotic too. So.
Yeah, so yeah. Now oncotic is pretty much the same as osmotic pressure. It's just that so os okay, so first I should state that when we typically think of pressure, we think of like a pushing kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
If you were to like uh have a container and you increase the pressure in that container, you we could say that the gas inside of the container is pushing against the walls of the container. That's how you feel the pressure, like a pushing kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Now, osmotic pressure is more of like a sucking kind of pressure. So that means that so if we had like a um like okay, so let's say that we have a bunch of like solutes here with H2O on the left, and we have like a semi-permeable membrane, like a membrane that can permit the travel of the water, but not the like circles that I drew. Um so like this would be a let's say a high solute concentration compared to here, a low solute concentration. But that also would mean if you have a high solute concentration, you have, relatively speaking, like a lower like water concentration.
So then would that be higher osmotic pressure?
Yep, because water is going to be, because yeah, because all right, low H2O, high H2O. So like, you know, we can set, so like regular diffusion is going to be from a high concentration to a low concentration. And that's going to be true like always. But when we talk about solutions, we must make a distinction between solute concentration and water concentration, because osmosis is really just the diffusion of water, which means that uh, we move from high concentration of water to low. So in this thing that I drew, is water going to be moving that way or this way?
To the left.
To the left, right? Because if there's a higher solute concentration, there must be a smaller concentration of water. And since diffusion is high to low, you're going to have water entering in to the environment on the left. And this is your osmotic pressure. And you can see what I mean in terms of a sucking type of pressure, where the water gets sucked inwards into the.
When they talk about oncotic pressure, is that like a type of osmotic, but just dealing with like the proteins, like the
Yeah,
reason why the water is going
yeah,
to the left is because of the proteins there?
exactly, exactly. So osmotic pressure, like in the context of, I guess, the kidneys and stuff, they can call it oncotic pressure. But yeah, that's a more specific version of osmotic pressure.
So then does hydrostatic pressure have to do with like the concentration of the proteins?
So
So like
yep. So the hydrostatic
like
pressure is, I mean, go for it.
no, I was just gonna say like if there's a high concentration of the proteins on the left, then the hydrostatic pressure is like pushing the proteins to go to the right.
So a hydrostatic pressure is uh sure, if you have more solutes and therefore more osmotic pressure, you'll have less hydrostatic pressure, because hydrostatic pressure is more so like the normal pressure that we think of when we think of pressure, meaning it like pushes outwards. So rather than pulling in. So your hydrostatic pressure, for instance, will be like, if this is like the capillaries for your glomerulus, and then this is the Bowman's capsule. The so you can have, so in this direction would be like the hydrostatic pressure that is really the blood pressure that pushes the blood against like the Bowman's capsule, and it filters that blood too by only allowing like the small stuff to get through, and holding the larger stuff in. So yeah, the hydrostatic pressure, in order for this, blood to go from the glomerulus to the Bowman's capsule, you're going to need to have a higher hydrostatic pressure that pushes the blood from the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule. Um,
So is
yeah.
static pressure um like it's not talking about water at all, it's just talking about volume, kind of like the volume that's pressing against the walls
Hmm.
that's pushing.
Yep. Yeah. So it could still be, I mean, it will be based on, wait, what did you say about not based on water?
Well, I'm just trying to like differentiate between hydrostatic and osmotic. If osmotic is talking about a sucking pressure of water, like into a lower concentration, how is that different from hydrostatic?
Yeah. So the hydrostatic pressure is pretty much just regular pressure. There's no impact, or rather, like, so okay, just like osmotic pressure depends on the presence and amount of solutes, hydrostatic pressure is not affected by, or I mean, it's typically used not in an example that includes solutes, but it's more so like the pressure of the blood or the water or the fluid that pushes against like your blood vessel walls, or in this case, against the glomerulus to filter that blood. So yeah, the hydrostatic pressure is like that pushing pressure that is not due to solutes, whereas the osmotic pressure is going to be a sucking type of pressure that is going to be um, dependent on solutes.
So could hydrostatic pressure theoretically apply to like any other pressure that we talk about,
Yep.
like of a gas or something?
Yeah. So like in terms of physics, because like in physics, it's like, pressure's pressure, right? And that's going to be that pushing type of force. So hydrostatic pressure is really just like regular pressure. Whereas, yeah, and on osmotic or oncotic pressure will, depending on solute concentration, cause fluid to be like, yeah, sucked inward. And that's in the context. Like you won't really see that in the context in a context that is not talking about um like a capillary, for instance. Because like in a capillary, like, you start off with like, so let's say like arteries and then whatever, capillaries and then like veins. Um, your arteries are going to have high hydrostatic pressure, whereas your veins or the vein end of the capillary is going to have a stronger osmotic pressure. So what that means is, like, let's say this is tissue, right? Um, when the hydros so in the arteries here, or the arterial end of a capillary, is going to have uh, a hydrostatic pressure that's larger than the osmotic pressure, which means fluid is being pushed out of the artery or the blood vessel into the tissue.
That just because like there's more volume in the artery? Like why does it have a higher hydrostatic pressure?
Well, same reason why arteries have higher pressure, right?
Because they're
Yeah.
like being pumped more.
Yep. Like, yeah, your heart pumps and, gets blood moving, through your arteries. Um, uh, and because it's such a high pressure, that's why like when they check your blood pressure, they check the pressure of like an artery in your arm, right? Um, I don't know if you ever see like in TV, like crime TV shows where they do like a blood spatter analysis. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like they look for arterial spray, which is like means like that, yeah, like if you nick like an artery compared to like a vein, it's like you nick a vein, it's like, okay, that sucks, whatever. But you nick an artery, since it's at such a high pressure, you can lose a lot of your blood and you can bleed out like instantly. So that's why
Mhm.
the arterial end is going to be, and I should like kind of specify this by saying that I'm really drawing like a capillary. It's just that this is like the end that is closest to the artery, and then this is the end that's closest to the vein. But yeah, because the arteries, are connected to like our left like ventricle, causing it to pump outwards to get to the rest of our body. You would need that to be, having a high pressure. Um, Otherwise, it won't be like, traveling through or circulating through our bodies. And when it comes to fluid or water being like pushed onto the tissue or the cells, you would need that hydrostatic pressure to be greater than the osmotic pressure. Whereas as you get closer to the venial or the venous side of the capillaries, you're going to have an increase in osmotic pressure, which is going to be sucking that uh the fluid uh like inwards into like the blood vessel in this case.
And why is that? Is that because of like the oxygen that's not there? Or like why does the osmotic pressure become higher?
Yeah, because you're having more solutes entering in. So let me see if I can get a picture. So
They might like have their own like
yeah,
thing
yeah. Um,
here.
yeah, so you could see, so this is a so yeah, this is essentially what I was drawing here with the capillary, with the red side being the arterial end and the blue side the venous end. And the arterial end has a much larger hydrostatic pressure than osmotic pressure, which is why, fluid is going to be moving out of this blood vessel and into like the interstitial space, or, tissue or cells. And then as we move to the vein side, we have a smaller hydrostatic pressure and a larger osmotic pressure. Now, the osmotic pressure can be caused by, these proteins that don't cross the walls of the capillary. But yeah, it could also just be due to the fact that once you are kind of going from artery to arterial and arterial to capillaries, you need your capillaries to be like the diameter of like one blood cell to maximize the surface area for gas exchange. And that also means you're gonna have to like reduce the pressure um if you want gas exchange, because you can't have it being like too much of it moving, like liquid moving out or liquid moving in. um so that's what you want. Like in the capillary, like your pressure basically, like as you go from your aorta is going to be the highest pressure, followed by
Mhm.
the arteries, followed by the arterioles, which connect the arteries to the capillaries, and then capillaries will be where, it kind of drops. And then beyond the capillaries into the venules and the vein, ultimately in the vena cava, you're going to have a smaller hydrostatic pressure, which is why veins have valves and stuff.
Okay. So then for not this question, but yeah, this question, which is kind of going off similar idea. Um, I got it wrong.
Yep. So, yeah, so you can open up this picture I sent in the chat. Yeah, here we go. So this is the capillary, and the left side is the arterial end, and it says that fluid exits the capillary, meaning it goes into the interstitium or the cell or the tissue, since the hydrostatic pressure is greater than the osmotic pressure, right? And in the middle of the capillary, where we have, most of that gas exchange, you have an equivalent amount of osmotic pressure and hydrostatic pressure, so there's no net movement, and that's what you want in order for your gas exchange to happen with the red blood cells here. So that's what happens there, and then once you enter the venous end, the fluid will re-enter the blood vessel because the sucking osmotic pressure is larger than the pushing hydrostatic pressure.
Okay.
Mhm. So, and oh, and then also you can see like they're using the word filtration to kind of
Mhm.
to describe blood flow coming from a capillary into something else. And so that, is relevant to the um glomerulus.
So when something's being filtered, it's going out into the tissue.
Yep. So it can be to describe anything that is going to, so like for a hydrostatic pressure, you're going to have whichever direction that pressure is pushing against will be the direction of fluid flow. And then osmotic pressure, whichever direction that sucks inward is going to be the direction of fluid flow. So so yeah, in this context, like yeah, the filtration can be into like another cell, into like another tissue, into an interstitial like space. In the context of a nephron, the filtration would be going into the tubule in the tube system. That's what we call the filtrate.
Like the filtrate is eventually the thing that's excreted.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have like an issue with that because I've like tried understanding what like reabsorbing is or like filtering is, like where that's going. Because when I think of reabsorption, I think of like going back into the body rather than being excreted out. But
Yep.
here it's the opposite.
Well,
Like in the
yeah. So reabsorption. So okay, filtration is moving out of the blood. You can think about it like that. Like where it ultimately goes can depend. It can go to your tissue, it can go to your cells, it can go to the tube system of the nephron. But what's always going to be true is that it's leaving the blood vessel.
so it could still be filtered into a cell tissue
Yep.
because it's leaving the blood.
Yeah. Like the blood vessel. Yep. So
Okay.
wherever it goes can depend, but if it's leaving the blood vessel, it's filtration. Because
Okay.
the idea is you're filtering the blood, right? And so reabsorption is no matter what, like eh, blood coming back into the blood vessel. So it can come from your cells, it can come from, your tissues, which are composed of cells, it can come from the, you know, tubes of the nephron. So no matter what, filtration will always involve fluid leaving the blood vessel. Reabsorption will always involve fluid coming back to the blood vessel.
So then in terms of the nephron,
Mhm.
the blood, it's being reabsorbed into the, well, it's not being hold on. In terms of the kidney, the like outer portion is the blood and the inner portion is like where the filtrate is, like in the tubes.
When you say
So
like that, like tell me more about that. You said
like inside of the tubes, like you have like, for example, like the descending limb and the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. The inner portion is like the filtrate, and then the outer portion would be considered like the blood.
I see, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this entire tube system is surrounded. I mean, we usually don't see it in pictures because it would look messy, but it's surrounded by this vast like capillary network called the vasa recta. So basically, if something is going into so that just means that this empty space really is blood vessels,
Okay.
like capillaries. So now,
So in that case, like just in terms of the kidney, like
mhm.
tissues and blood are kind of synonymous
Yep,
versus the filtrate.
yeah, that's a good point because I said that filtration could include leaving the blood vessel going into the tissue, whereas here, like it could look like the reabsorption is going back into the tissue, but it still goes through the blood vessel first.
Okay, so then when it goes into the tubule, that's filtration.
Yep.
But then if it's going like into the tissue or the blood, that would be reabsorption.
Yep. So
Okay.
yeah, so we can consider to be consistent the same thing with uh, filtration leaving the blood vessel going into wherever, in this case, the tubes of the renal nephron, and then reabsorption going back into the blood. Sure, it can go to cells later. In fact, in order for it to go to cells later, it would have to then go through filtration again. So yeah, to simplify it, if fluid is going into the blood vessel, reabsorption. If fluid is leaving the blood vessel, we can say that that's filtration.
Okay.
Right? So that means that uh so consequently then that means that the filtrate is what we call the stuff inside of these tubes,
Okay.
right? And so yeah, and so things that are going in it would be filtration, things that are coming out would be reabsorption. So, good example of that is like uh so what does ADH do?
It causes an increase of water, or it causes an increase of aquaporins in the membrane of the tubule so that more water um goes um, more water goes into the blood
Mm-hmm. Because so you
with
know
increased blood pressure.
uh-huh. So here this dotted line, like what am I drawing this for?
The cortex and the medulla.
All right, and what's the difference? Or
Um, one of them is for nutrients and the other one is for water,
so
maybe.
cortex environment has a lot fewer solutes than the medulla. So essentially, if you're going this way, the environment solute concentration goes up. So that's what
Okay.
just yeah. So that's why you can see this type of like reabsorption with of water happen because as we go down in the descending loop of Henle and also in the collecting duct, we're entering an environment that has a higher um, osmotic pressure, right? Because we have a higher amount of solutes. And that's why
Mhm.
we're going to have water due to the osmotic pressure being sucked out from the tubes, the renal nephron tubes, back into the blood.
Okay.
So that's what so yeah, it's like I think it goes down to like 1200 or 12,000, something like that, like in terms of the solute concentration. But yeah, if you go from the cortex down to the medulla, the environment becomes more and more concentrated, and therefore there's a lot more osmotic pressure, which then would make sense why there's more reabsorption.
Okay.
Yeah. So the ADH, antidiuretic hormone, you can think about it as like aquaporins drilling holes, and that would cause at the collecting duct water to be reabsorbed back into the blood.
Hmm.
And so like something like alcohol inhibits antidiuretic hormone, which means alcohol would make you not reabsorb the water at the collecting duct, which means a lot of water will be in the tubule, which eventually gets excreted out through urine. So that's why people, like if you're drinking, you're gonna end up urinating a lot of the water out, and you're gonna be at risk for dehydration.
Okay.
You need water, like our brains need glucose or ketone bodies, but yeah, glucose um for energy, and water is needed for the Krebs cycle. So that's why you can get like a hangover if you drink and you lose a lot of water. And then you don't have enough for the TCA cycle. So yeah, so all in all, uh yeah, think about it like this. Filtration, or think about it like this. Blood vessels have blood inside of them, which push against the walls of the vessel, producing a hydrostatic pressure. And that's the pressure that you can like feel on your artery or whatever.
Mhm.
And if you're oh, and then osmotic pressure is a sucking type of pressure caused by a solute concentration. And so um, when it comes to a capillary, the arterial end is going to have a stronger hydrostatic pressure, a larger hydrostatic pressure than osmotic pressure. So it pushes things out of the blood vessel, which is called filtration. And if you have an osmotic pressure that's greater than a hydrostatic pressure, it's going to be more of the sucking type of pressure, which means you're going to get reabsorption, aka fluids, entering into the blood vessel.
So then for this question that I got wrong, um, it's asking about unabsorbed fats that are broken down. So excess unabsorbed fats would have which effect on the intestine? Um, so like if there's more unabsorbed fats, that means that the osmotic pressure in the intestine would be greater because it's a sucking pressure. So it would cause diarrhea because there would be more water going in to the intestine.
You said uh that the suck so sorry, say what you said. You said what?
Um, the like unabsorbed fats would cause an increase in the osmotic pressure because that is like a sucking pressure, and there's more solute in the intestine now, so the water would go towards the solute, which would eventually cause diarrhea instead of constipation.
Okay, let's see. So if we are saying that there's excess, oh yeah. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep, yep.
Okay. Because I think originally, um, okay, yeah. The original answer I put was like that it decreases, but I think that was because I was getting confused and I thought like the osmotic pressure is the opposite of oncotic, even though like this has to do with fats, so that's not even relevant. But
Yep. Yeah, so solute concentration proportional to osmotic pressure.
okay. Okay, that makes more sense now then.
Awesome. So yeah, I was trying to see if I could find like a picture of like at the glomerulus, but like so at the glomerulus, you just want to know that we have your since we are pushing stuff like fluid out of the blood vessel, that's gonna involve a higher hydrostatic pressure at that uh, glomerulus slash like Bowman's capsule interface. So, okay. All right. What's next on what you're going to be doing? Like another test at some point?
I mean, for today, I think I'm gonna keep working on cars
Oh
to
yeah,
see if
like
to see if
later.
this
Mhm.
yeah, and then to see if the new strategy helps. And then my next test is Friday. And then I think we meet on Saturday.
Okay. And
And that's gonna be my last practice test.
yeah, so I think last time you said something about maybe like something you ate or
Yeah. I'm really trying to like limit how much I'm eating during each section now because like I guess I was worried before that like I wouldn't have enough energy and so I would eat more to like keep my energy up, but that actually does the opposite for me and it just makes me really tired.
yep, yep.
So I'm gonna try to have like smaller snacks.
Yeah, because that's the parasympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
right? Rest and, and digest. So, um, got it. Yeah. So yeah, as long as everything that you're doing is like consistent, like to minimize any like confounding variables, like your sleep and everything, like everything's that like
Yeah, I
you
think the only thing that I'm still trying to figure out whether or not would be helpful is caffeine
know.
because if I have too much of it, it like makes me really anxious.
Hmm.
Um, but then I'm also nervous that like I won't have enough energy to get through the 8-hour test. So I've been drinking caffeine like on the days I have um a test, but I don't really know if I need it, and I also don't know if it's hurting me more than helping.
Yeah, would you say that the energy gain that you get from coffee is larger than the like anxiety or like jitters that you get?
I
And
re- like I don't really know, honestly. Um
so far for your tests, you've been drinking coffee, you're saying?
yeah, but like the last one, the last one I didn't drink as much as I normally do. So I don't know, maybe that had an impact too, but um Yeah, I don't know. Caffeine and I have like a weird relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it also inhibits antidiuretic hormone. But okay,
Yeah.
and like your sleep and like how's that stuff?
It's been okay. Like I've noticed that if I even if I set an alarm and I am going to bed at like 9 or 10, I'll still get up around 5-ish, which or honestly, I've been getting like 6 to 7 hours of sleep every night, and that has been like I don't really feel very tired or anything. And even when I'm naturally sleeping without an alarm, it's still like 6 to 7, even though like I should be getting 7 to 8. I don't know if that.
Well, like at like 5 a.m. you just like you can't help it, you just like wake up.
Yeah, I'm a morning person, like extremely a morning person. Like even when I was younger, like in elementary school, I'd get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd get extremely tired at night. So like that also kind of has an impact on things, I think. Like when I'm taking the test, I'm more awake in the morning. And then once lunchtime hits, like I think the fact that I'm a morning person, tied with eating too much might be a really bad combination.
Are you saying
Um,
that because if you're a morning extreme morning person, by the time you get to like some section like in on the MCAT, it's too late, then you've kind of like gotten past.
it's not that it's like too late, but I've just lost that like morning like
Yeah.
boost, I guess, that I had. Like now I'm just kind of like
Mhm.
going about my day.
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder if it would help to like get up like 2 hours later so that you can kind of like get up aligned to when you start the test and maybe that can help you get more sleep ultimately, but also delay it a bit so that when you get tired, it's going to be later on. But at the same time, like I don't want you to like completely change things. So okay. And yeah, I guess, yeah, when it comes to like a meal, like something not too big or something. And then like, yeah, any other kind of things that you can think of that
um,
could affect.
well, I've just been having like aside from those things, I've been having, I think, like a mental issue going on, especially with the fact that like I only have like a week and a half left and I'm not like anywhere near the goal that I want to be at. And
Mhm.
I think, I don't know if the goal that I had was like too big of a goal or if I just wasn't like studying the right way or if it's like even still attainable. Um, and so I think I've been kind of just like grappling with that. Um,
Got it. So,
yeah.
like, not that I want you to like think about this, but worst case scenario, like, would be like a retake, right?
Well, yeah, that's another thing. Like to keep with like the schedule that I really want to keep, um, I I can't push this test back. And I also don't think that would even be helpful because I tend to like focus more when I only have like a shorter amount of time. So pushing it back would only like prolong the inevitable, I guess.
Got it.
Um, and then with a retake, I'm like hoping obviously that doesn't happen, but yeah, I just like thinking about a retake makes me nervous because kind of messes up like the things that I would want to do afterwards because the things that I'm hoping to do after would take up a lot of my time and I know I wouldn't have as much as I do now.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, the only reason I was bringing it up was um from what you're saying about like your score isn't like where you want it to be. And I know that for most of my students, I have them do like at least like six like of the like Altius test or something like that. So like if worst case scenario it came to that, I think there is stuff that you can do to improve your score. Like I don't think it's like now or never, right? Uh Obviously, I don't want you to be thinking about that because you want to give it everything your all like now. But I'm just saying like yeah, if you don't get some like your ideal score or whatever, it's not like people like I retook my exam, so so I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to think ahead of like if the possibility arose where I had to retake, um, I would not have the same amount of time that I have now. So I would just have to like really think about what would be the best way to go about studying. Like obviously I'm not in the content phase anymore, so that wouldn't as that wouldn't be as big of an issue, but um yeah, like I wouldn't be able to study for like 7 to 8 hours every day.
Mhm.
Uh, Stuff like that. So I would just need to like really strategize and like I would need help on knowing what to do to focus on.
Got it. Yeah. So I mean, the only thing I would say to that is that if it's not the same pace that you're doing now, it could be a lower pace, but you're still gonna have added practice. But yep, of course, this is all worst case scenario, so don't want to like harp on it. So I think for you, like, we have like we're kind of between like for the AMC exams, like 506, 508, and then the 512s. You have more of like the 512s, so I think we're hopefully going to lead on that. So I think it might come down to your like I think it might come down to like the cars score, like if you get that
Um,
high as usual. Because I guess your goal was like a what, like a 515, something like that.
my goal was like I mean my original goal was like 520 or above.
Mhm.
And that's like a very lofty goal, which maybe like if I had more time and like knew what to focus on, that could have been more attainable. And then I've since like kind of adjusted a little bit more to accept that like anything above a 515 is probably like good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I really didn't want to like score below 515. Um,
Okay.
which like I don't know at this point like if that's gonna happen or not.
Yeah. So yeah, anything can happen, and if we know that your cars maps, at least that one that I saw, I'll take a look at the others. Is pretty good except for just that one paragraph, and it was arguably a pretty tough passage because a lot of stuff was confusing, particularly like conflicts. I still don't really like that because,
Yeah.
does that mean war or not? But your maps were good. And yeah, okay. And yeah, I guess it's just to dial in, your sleep and food and yeah, all of that stuff. So, okay, okay. So yeah, I think you're on the right track and you're gonna take it on Friday, you said? Or
Yeah.
okay. And then I'm seeing you
And
on
Saturday. I
all
think like for the next session, because again, like what I'm doing this week and next week is like really focusing on strategy and like just using I mean, I really have to use like just the aamc material now too because I haven't used as much of it as I wanted to. Like I didn't realize how little time I had until it was too late, basically. So,
you
um,
so does that mean doing like the section banks?
yeah,
volume one, volume two.
Yeah.
So those are like you're still doing them?
Yeah, I'm doing like I was working on because I think that was another thing, like when we were talking about phase two and three and like working on the aamc material, I glazed over the section bank portion and just started doing the material. And I think like I was doing like diagnostic and the question packs and everything, but like going back, like I should have been doing the section banks from the start because like they're probably the most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, the Q packs are technically from the old exam, and the only section that hasn't changed from the old exam is cars. So the cars Q packs are still valid. But yeah, for the sciences, it's going to be the section bank, and I mean it sounds the same as the question pack. Like people mix that up all the time, but yeah, it's a section bank. It's like you'll know it's like because it'll be like CP 100 questions
Yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, I guess yeah, continue working on that. And good luck on Friday. Um and yeah, and I'll see you on Saturday. All right.